Hello, beautiful souls. Thank you so very much for dropping by the video. I'm smiling because there's something about my camera. It's like flip the image. Anyway, hi and a warm welcome. I'm amused by that because everything feels and seems opposite, which is very apropos because Neo-Advaita is the exact opposite of the truth, and it'll confuse the heck out of you. So right here, right now, I'm amused by this whole camera thing, and I'm amused by how related it is to Neo-Advaita, but I also feel sick to my stomach. And that's what I noticed happens whenever I interact with a Neo-Advaita teacher. Now, for the most part, I don't, but they're kind of everywhere in the spiritual world, so it's kind of hard to avoid them. But I just had a really yucky interaction with a particular Neo-Advaita teacher, which I'm going to share and unpack, hopefully so that it can help other people recognize what's going on, and also so I can just get this yuck out of me. I think before I hop into it, though, a long time ago, I met someone who he had a profound spiritual awakening at a very early age, and he's had association with lots of traditional gurus, including Advaita Vedanta gurus. And this person once said that Neo-Advaita was demonic. And I was like, that's a little dramatic. I didn't really take what he said seriously, but now I do. It truly is demonic. And I think you'll see through this interaction why I now believe that, why this person said that. And at the end of the video, I'll wrap up with some stories about just how demonic Neo-Advaita is and how low it can take you. So first and foremost, on to this Neo-Advaita teacher. So someone posted a video which shares Ramana Maharshi and Adi Shankara's teachings that before you do self-inquiry, it's necessary to prepare. And this person responded, dumb video, who am I, which is the method of part of the method of self-inquiry. Who am I just gets one to look within. It's the spiritual path. So what's the big deal? Why would I go over someone making a simple statement? Well, it's actually not so simple. So just in this little teaching that DW, I don't think it's helpful to name this person. They are a Mooji devotee. We'll see that later on. But just in this one statement, it's such a twisted. It's so twisted. So, okay, who am I? Just gets one to look within. It's the spiritual path. So let's break it down. Who am I? That's part of the meditative practice, asking, inquiring, who am I? Gets one to look within. So that's ass backwards. So who am I? In traditional Advaita Vedanta, the inquiry into who am I is the final stage of the path. According to DW, like that gets you to look within. Like if you start asking, who am I? That will begin the spiritual path. So right from the start, we can see that Sri Sri Guru DWG is teaching the exact opposite of Ramana Maharshi and Adi Shankara and all these other great teachers. And in fact, so I'm going to share some of the direct quotes of Ramana in one moment, but let's finish up. So he said, who am I gets one to look within. It's the spiritual path. So this is the primary Neo-Advaita lie, that self-inquiry is the whole path. Chill and play games. Hi. So this is just the essence of the Neo-Advaita lie, saying that self-inquiry is the whole path. It's absolutely not. Well, it's the whole Neo-Advaita path. Okay, but according to Ramana Maharshi, Adi Shankara, the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, it's the final stage of a very intricate, and you could say subtle, I don't want to say complex, but a very intricate, subtle process. And so people who just practice self-inquiry, and I know this from experience, are trying to escape reality, because self-inquiry for the unprepared mind creates a dissociative experience, and it gives you no guidance or no radar for how to navigate life. So in this one simple statement by Sri Sri DWG, the whole Neo-Advaita lie is just laid out. Now, here are some quotes from some actual Advaita Vedanta teachers, and you'll see how it's the exact opposite. Okay. Can the path of inquiry be followed by all aspirants? Ramana Maharshi. This is suitable only for the ripe souls. The rest should follow different methods according to their states of mind. Neo-Advaita hates this teaching. Neo-Advaita teaches there's only one method and only one practice. Just like Sri Sri DWG said, who am I? Gets one to look within. This is the spiritual path. I couldn't have asked someone to explain Neo-Advaita better than this Mooji devotee in just this one sentence. The whole Neo-Advaita lie is put forth in this one sentence. Thank you, DWG. So let's hear some more from Ramana Maharshi. All right. If the aspirant have not one-pointedness of mind, which is possible for him who has a pure mind full of sattva, dispassion, discrimination, etc., self-inquiry is impossible. Sattva, that's a whole topic. I've talked a lot about sattva, but in essence, don't practice self-inquiry until you have one-pointedness of mind and until you have sattva. That's what Ramana Maharshi teaches. What do Neo-Advaita teachers teach? Practice self-inquiry. It will give you one-pointedness of mind, and it will give you sattva. Ramana Maharshi disagrees. Here's what he has to say. Is it true that it is only possible for mature minds, not immature ones, to practice self-inquiry? That was the the question is, is it possible for all people to hold on to the path of self-inquiry? Ramana Maharshi's response. It is true that it is only possible for mature minds, not immature ones. And above, he said, what is a mature mind? Someone who has one-pointedness of mind, meaning you're able to hold on to one thought for hours. A mind that is full of sattva. That means you are primarily at peace and unattached. Neo-Advaita teachers say, if you practice this, you will get these things. Ramana Maharshi says, practice other things, I'm going to continue the quote, for the later repetition of prayer or holy names under one's breath, japa, worship of images, breath control, pranayama, visualizing a pillar of light, and similar yogic and spiritual and religious practices have been prescribed. By these practices, people become mature and then will realize the self through the path of self-inquiry. Neo-Advaita teachers say, just like this Mooji devotee, just practice self-inquiry. Ramana Maharshi says, do these other things first. You need to have certain qualifications, then you can practice self-inquiry. Someone wrote, I think Mooji's method is only for a few people. I think Mooji's method is for no people. Muji has had 3 people kill themselves at his quote ashram with a 4th person attempt suicide. Muji is not qualified to teach anyone. Why do I say that? Because Mooji only teaches self-inquiry, and no one... So in Advaita Vedanta, you need another teacher to say you are qualified to teach. Mooji does not have that. No one looked at him, no genuine guru looked at him and said, you are qualified to teach. Mooji one day decided, I am enlightened. I am qualified to teach, which is absurd. It's like someone reading a bunch of books and saying, medical books, I am qualified to practice surgery. So that's really interesting. So this person, and so you're trying to change the subject, which is okay. But so first, let's stick on the subject of Mooji. You brought up Mooji. Mooji's method is only for a few people. That's religious nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Mooji made up his own method. So the quotes I just shared showed that what Mooji is teaching is opposite what Ramana Maharshi taught. So if Mooji's method is only for a few people, where are the people who have achieved enlightenment through Mooji's method? There are none. However, through Mooji's method, people have actually killed themselves. So now let's get on to your next. So your next, I'll come back to your evil intentions and what about the first gurus. Those are interesting questions. So here's another quote from Sri Swami Shivananda, who's actually a very famous Advaita teacher. If you are a student of Vedanta or Jnana Yoga is another name for self-inquiry, you will have to equip yourself with the 4 means of salvation. Sadhana Chantushta. And by the way, I'm going to put all these quotes below this video when I'm done. You will have to do Sravana, Manama, and Nidhyasana. That is a very intense and detailed 3-step process. Then only you will attain Brahma Sakshatakara, knowledge of Brahman. A student who treads the path of truth must therefore first equip himself with the sadhana chantusha, the 4 means of salvation. These are, I'm not going to list them all. It actually ends up being 9 things. Some of the prerequisites I've talked about: a primary sattvic mind, one-pointedness of mind, etc. Then alone will he be able to march forward fearlessly on the path. And here's where it gets really interesting. Not an iota of spiritual progress is possible unless one is endowed with these 4 qualifications. Now, I'd like to qualify that. Not one iota of spiritual progress on the non-dual path, on the path of Vedanta or Jnana Yoga, because that's what this quote started with. Not one iota. Okay, cool. Thanks, Truth and Love. I'll get back to that in a moment. So the long and short of it is there's 2 teachings here. There's the teaching of what you could call actual or traditional Advaita, and there's the teaching of Neo-Advaita. Now let's continue. I'm going to continue with the inspiration of this. Sri D.W., a Mooji Devotee. So I responded, except Ramana said most people were not qualified to practice self-inquiry. Sri D.W. responded, but anyone can practice self-inquiry. So here's what I'm talking about. You cannot follow Muji, this guy, D.W., Rupert Shapira, whatever his name is, you cannot follow these internet gurus and Ramana Maharshi and Advaita Vedanta and Adi Shankara. They just teach different methods. You got to pick one. So let's continue. I asked him, who taught you this? He responded, you think spiritual understanding is only for select spiritual people. So utter and absolute attempt to sidetrack, attempt to not answer the question, and we'll see why in a moment, why he doesn't want to answer this question. And again, this very closed-minded religious view of the spiritual path. So he's saying spiritual understanding is only through the path of self-inquiry, and that his teaching is that everyone can practice self-inquiry, which, as we've just seen, Ramana Maharshi, Adi Shankara, Swami Shivananda, they all say you need preparation first. So I asked him once again, so who taught you that? And his response is, no one. It's self-evident. So this Mooji devotee is saying, no one taught me this. It's self-evident. I realized directly on my own that anyone can practice self-inquiry. So that's his claim. And then I respond, okay, well, what you are teaching here is contradictory to the teachings of basically what I said here. And his response, I said, you and Mooji, are offering a different teaching, and the sages lifted above. His response, ha, ha, ha. No, it's not. You're being a bit dramatic. Looking for the I is a simple spiritual exercise. You're dividing everything up. So let's hear that again. Looking for the I is a simple spiritual exercise. Ramana Maharshi, Adi Shankara, Swami Shivananda, yada, 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 the traditional Advaita teachers are adamant. In fact, Ramana Maharshi said, for the one who is properly prepared, the path of self-inquiry is simple. For the one who is not properly prepared, it is impossible. So there's an ounce of truth to what this person is saying, except this person is discounting and disagreeing and saying you don't need any of the other practices. You're dividing everything up. Well, I mean, if by saying a coin, one side has heads and one side has tails, and I flip the coin and I get a tails, and I say, well, the coin came up tails. It's not a head. And this person says, you're dividing everything up. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. I learned self-inquiry from him, Muji. And maybe in person, it's all different. But his YouTube videos were great. It took me a while to get it, but it's clear to me. So this person, a few moments ago, they realized on their own that anyone could do self-inquiry. But now they're admitting that they learned it from Muji, and it's all clear now is slang. It's Neo-Advaita slang for I am enlightened. So that's the little fun interaction I had. Now I'll with this person. I'm a little you know why? Okay, so you can probably tell I'm a little agitated right now. I do not deny it. Why am I agitated? Because one of my best friends, through following a Neo-Advaita teacher, had a full-on nervous breakdown. His brother, following the same teacher, had a psychotic break. I followed that teacher, and it took me to the brink of suicide over and over and over. And it took me 20 years to get out of that cult. It's not Mooji, it's another teacher. And I'd say I'm about 5 years in beginning to recover, because this teaching that DW is casually throwing out on a Facebook group. And by the way, it's a very interesting Facebook group. It's called Mooji Exposed, Hidden Aspects Behind the Satsangs. So this guy's just kind of throwing it out like, this is true. I've realized this. Just practice self-inquiry. This same teaching has led people to kill themselves. I know another person follow this teaching. They are completely like dysfunctional, emotionally crippled. So a very dear friend of mine had what she calls a complete dissociation from her personality, from herself. I think it's called the technical psychological term is something like derealization, or just like absolute dissociation. And she's still struggling to recoup from it. So yeah, I get pissed off because this false teaching fucked with me, of course, is my negative karma that led, in my view, my negative karma that led me to this. And it has really harmed not just people I meet on the internet, I've met a bunch, but like people who are near and dear to my heart. One guy who wrote out to me, he followed Muji via YouTube, very popular way to follow a guru nowadays. He got to the point where all he did was sit on his couch and feel suicidal. Luckily, he had a kind of non-dual shift to where he was just the witness, but his personality was completely out of whack, that all he did was sit on his couch, feel suicidal, observe himself feeling suicidal, get up to go to the bathroom, get up to get something to eat. That's all he did. That was his life. He was trapped in that for, he didn't tell me how long. It sounded like he'd been trapped in that for months. All right, on to some of the questions. What about the first guru ever? No one said that he could teach. So it depends who you're. So there's kind of the Vedic stream and the Buddhist stream. Those are the two streams I'm most familiar with. So the Buddhist stream is very interesting. The Buddha studied. It's recorded that the Buddha studied with over 100 different teachers, rejected them all, went and sat under the Bodhi tree, and had a profound awakening. Now the Buddha said, "This is what I've experienced, and find out for yourself." So within the Buddhist view, they don't have the same guru. They don't have the same guru tradition as they do in Vedic thought. But it's very interesting. The Buddhist attitude truly is, come and see if this is true. Find out for yourself. So within the Vedic tradition, it goes back in time to who are called the rishis. The rishis were beings who it's attested and written that just like the Buddha, they had a direct perception of reality. They used to pass it along directly to other people. And then at a certain point, they actually wrote it down, which is why you have the Vedas. The Vedas are the testimony of what was directly seen by the rishis. I'm not saying any of this is true, by the way. I'm just saying this is the explanation. So most of the Vedas are not about enlightenment, but there is a specific part called the Upanishads, which in Vedic thought, you're only supposed to study the Upanishads at the last stage of your life, after you've been a student, after you've been a householder, and after you've been a community member. So it's just built in that, the crap that DW is teaching and Mooji is other people are teaching, like that's to be done at the end of your life unless you become a monk. There's a whole, I don't want to say culture, but there's a whole culture around how to approach these teachings. You go and I'll get to your I'll get to your question in a moment. So you go and you learn directly from a guru in a small group. You become a monk, or you live a balanced life, and then at the end of your life, you approach these teachings. That's how it was done for thousands of years before the internet. So the first guru ever. So in Vedic thought, there isn't really, I mean, there's some claims of a first guru, but it starts with these ideas of rishis, and different traditions are able to trace their lineages back. Some of them can trace them back very far. Some of them not so far. So that's a short answer to a very deep question. Do you think Mooji has evil intentions towards people? I don't know. I think that Mooji thinks he's enlightened, and he thinks he can lead other people to enlightened. Does he have evil intentions? I don't know. Is he under the influence of evil? I bet my soul on it. I mean, I'm utterly convinced. Me coming here and doing this from a Buddhist or a Hindu perspective, a Vedic perspective, if I am wrong, I am incurring such a huge karmic debt. If Mooji is a genuine guru and I'm doing what I'm doing, like I'm going to hell. Vedic thought has hell. It's just not eternal. Like what I'm doing, if I'm wrong, I'm in deep shit. The flip side of that is if what what I'm saying is accurate, Mooji is in deep, deep karmic shit. I don't have a Discord. Moo, thank you. I'm so glad it's very useful. Would someone with a non-dual perspective kill someone out of self-defense? So this is a great question. The Bhagavad Gita covers this. What I'll just say is the whole Bhagavad Gita is focused on that question. And I invite anyone to go check it out. It's interesting. In the Hebrew Bible, there's a different word between murder and kill. Murder is when you do it out of anger and rage. Kill is the word when you end a life for either neutral or just reasons. So it's a very deep question, and I'd invite you to go check out the Bhagavad Gita, because that's the whole topic. It's about a warrior who doesn't want to go on the battlefield. That's one of the reasons. And gets non-dual teachings. Chill and Play Game says this sort of thing will be seen as more and more common in the collective going forward. Depersonalization. Thank you. That's the word. Depersonalization. It's happening more and more. Thank you, Omega. Thank you, Chill and Play Games. The discussion needs to turn towards consideration of lifestyle, a mod appropriate for deep cultivation. Chill and Play Games. Like, please start a YouTube channel and start sharing this. That's it exactly. Is, Neo-Advaita teachers, just like this dude who I quoted, Sri DW. I mean, I'm so tempted to name this guy, but that I'd be doing that out of anger, and there's no need for it. Neo-Advaita is all about avoiding lifestyle. And what do I mean by lifestyle? So in Vedic thought, it comes down to one word, Dharma, doing the appropriate action. Like, okay, I want to name this person because I'm angry and because I'm irritated and pissed off. But I realize that is adharmic, opposite of Dharma. Dharma is what creates harmony and moves the situation forward. So Neo-Advaita is a complete bypass of Dharma. And as I said before, this teaching happens within a specific context. It happens within a context of karma yoga, of the simple version of karma yoga is dedicating all of your actions to be of service. And it also happens, as I shared before, within this context of the stages of life: student, householder, elder, renunciate. Some people are called to just become renunciates right from the start. Most people are not. But Neo-Advaita is teaching a path that's really only for renunciates. And that's why you have people going crazy. How would a non-dual perspective have the motivation to stop with someone from raping, murdering, abusing? Because they wouldn't see it as separate from themselves, right? So first of all, it's an amazing question. And second of all, what I want to say is, so there's a big difference between the Advaita perspective and the Neo-Advaita perspective. So, as someone who has not achieved enlightenment, mukti, liberation, or moksha, salvation, or I'm going to pass on answering that. And what I'm going to say is, find a genuine Advaita Vedanta guru and ask them that question. So the thing about Neo-Advaita is it's very abstract philosophy. Every single traditional Advaita Vedanta teacher I've associated with Amachi, who some of you have probably heard of. I've associated with Swamini Brahma Prajananda, and I've associated with Swami Maharishi Only. Those are the three, these are swamis in a lineage. They are all very practical, very grounded, very down to earth, and they're very active in life. So Neo-Advaita is armchair philosophy, right? And so your question is a legitimate question, but what I'm saying is it's a symptom of too much armchair philosophy. Go ask someone who embodies it, and don't try and figure it out, because Neo-Advaita teachings create this mind maze of endless questions. So again, your question is a great question. It's a legitimate question. And don't sit around thinking about such things on your own. That's Neo-Advaita. That'll drive you nuts. B, find someone who's qualified to answer that question. And so, okay, well, actually, so Ramakrishna gave a story that really illuminates this. So Ramakrishna is one of my favorite Advaita. He taught Advaita Tantra and Bhakti Yoga. Very rare in that he was initiated into 3 different schools. But regardless, he told a really interesting story that highlights this. So this guy goes to his guru, and the guru tells him that everything is Brahman. Everything is in essence God. The G word doesn't really cut it, but regardless, just work with me. Everything is God. So this guy who's like, he's a renunciate. He's go out and he's like, everything is God. He's in the forest. He's like, everything is God. That tree is God. That bush is God. That rock is God. I am God. The birds are God. And then this giant elephant starts charging towards him. And there's this man on the top of the elephant It's like, get out of the way, get out of the way. And the guy is like, everything is God. The elephant is God. The man on the God. I am God. He's like, there's no need to get out of the way. And then the elephant like tramples him, and he's like all, he gets just mangled. And later on, he crawls back to his guru and says, I don't understand, sir. Like, you taught me that everything was God. The guru's like, what's happened? And he said, well, I don't understand. You taught me that everything was God. So I was out meditating on that, and I was in the forest, and this elephant came charging towards me, and this guy on top of the elephant was like, get out of the way. And I didn't, because I realized that everything I was practicing, I realized everything was God. And the guru looked at him and said, so the man on top of the elephant who was telling you to get out of the way, he was not God. Is that what you're saying? So this is why you need to have, like, I'm not a guru. This is why you need an actual guru, because these ideas misapplied will not only drive you crazy, they'll lead you to crazy actions. So this guy misapplied the teachings of his guru. Luckily, he had a legitimate guru, and he went back and he was able to get correction. Part of it just comes down to common sense. Part of it comes down to Dharma. Like Chill and Play Game said, love acts to protect love. That's Dharma. Before one learns these teachings, one needs a sense of Dharma, needs a sense of ethics. Neo-Advaita says, forget ethics. Practice self-inquiry and you'll become ethical. Well, Mooji's track record shows that's not true. Yeah. 20 years. I'm really sorry you went through all that. Have you considered taking a step back from this Advaita teachings altogether? I have. I don't follow the path of Advaita Vedanta anymore. I follow something more along the lines of Theravada Buddhism and Mahayana Buddhism. Like if I had to pick a sect within the Vedic tradition, I'd choose Vishishta Advaita, qualified non-duality, which is very different from Advaita Vedanta. Advaita Vedanta is not my path. I just share these things for my own healing and hopefully to help other people. But no, Advaita Vedanta is not my path. I'm very much committed to the Buddhist path. Sorry if this is too personal, but I'm curious. You clearly went through a terrible experience. How could you not throw it all out? I mean, that's not too personal. Thanks for asking, Omega. Well, I mean, my first response is the idea of just throwing everything out. It's a little bit spiritual bypassy, right? It's a little bit like life doesn't work that way. Like, yes, like let's say you're resentful at someone. Sometimes you can be like, you know what? I forgive them. I'm done with it. Put it aside and never think about it again. Like sometimes that's possible, right? But for most of us, there's kind of this process of working through. Same thing with grief. Like there's this working through, this unwinding that needs to happen. So I've worked through most of my resentment towards Neo-Advaita teachers, but not 100%. Like sometimes stuff will get me, like this guy in Facebook. And so what I do is I try and work with it. I come on here and I talk about it. I try and share in a way that it's helpful to people. And part of it's just like naming my authentic feelings. Like I'm feeling irritated. I'm feeling pissed off, which is how I started this video. So your question, so my understanding of life and the spiritual path is it's a process. Neo-Advaita offers a false shortcut. Just inquire and everything will be well. So the quotes that I showed at the beginning of this video, and I will post underneath this video when I'm done, they very clearly show that the non-dual path, traditional Advaita Vedanta, is an absolute process. And I haven't even, it's actually even deeper than what I shared. I went over kind of like the very basics of how the traditional non-dual path is a process. And so in my view, Advaita, Neo-Advaita doesn't impact everyone the way it impacted me or my friends. The people who it really negatively impacted are those who go to Neo-Advaita with deep suffering. If you go to Neo-Advaita with deep suffering, prepare for your suffering to be multiplied exponentially. If you go to Neo-Advaita and you're a reasonably balanced person, it probably will just hurt you just a little bit. Like I watched this happen, like this satsang that I was in for 20 years. Those of us who it really messed up, we already had deep psychological imbalances and deep suffering. And we were going to this teacher looking for relief from that suffering. He didn't teach us things that would address the suffering. He taught us how to dissociate from the suffering. All that did was make it worse. There's a cliche, what you resist persists, and it's very true in the psychological realm, in my experience. But it also became addictive. And I've talked about this, just as someone who gets into the addiction of like alcohol or sex or drugs to numb out or to dissociate from deep suffering, that's what leads to addiction. Same thing with Neo-Advaita. Those of us who had intense trauma or psychological challenges, being a part of Neo-Advaita was a straight up hell on earth traumatic experience. So unfortunately, it's not so straightforward to recover from it. Ram Dass is my favorite guru. By the way, he says that there is an astral realm where we exist as soul. Do you think this is true? I don't know. I don't know if it's true. So when it comes to things I don't know, what I'll say is I assume. I assume there's truth to that teaching, but I don't know. And I can't say that I believe it. It's more like I assume that there's truth to it, and I trust that there's truth to it, but I don't know. And he's not the only teacher that teaches that. And yeah, I guess you could say that Mooji should be better at choosing his devotee. If he chooses renunciates, then it would be no problem, right? I've had a similar thought. I'm like, could Mooji lead anyone to enlightenment? My belief is no. So the thing is Mooji hasn't, in my view, and I think Mooji's behavior pretty much points this out, Mooji hasn't completed the path, so he can't lead anyone to do it. The Buddhist idea of ego, they talk about Mara, is they call it intraceable. It's subtle. The thing we're trying to overcome, whether you call it Maya, ego, evil, Mara, it is subtle beyond words. That's why you need an actual guru. My view is that Mooji is completely caught in a very sophisticated form of Maya, the I am enlightened delusion. And that he's a delusional person. We're all delusional. The difference is most of us don't sit up on a throne and say we're not delusional and we're perfect. So I don't think Mooji could lead anyone to enlightenment. I do think someone who has a naturally renunciate mindset could listen to some of Mooji's teachings and say there's some truth there, because it's not like everything Mooji says is completely bullshit. Like wouldn't that be nice if like everything he says was completely false? So I believe that someone who has some of the qualities of a renunciate could go and listen to Mooji, and that could move them forward on their path, I don't think they'd stick around, Mooji. In fact, I've talked to people who have had profound awakening experiences, and they'll say, one person said something like that, like there was some truth there, but I could just tell that something was very wrong. And that's the thing is, you can feel it. Like when I talk to someone who's into Neo-Advaita, it's not just their language. Something just feels wrong. And it's the difference between talking to people who are into Neo-Advaita and talking to traditional Advaita Vedanta teachers. An Advaita Vedanta teacher is genuine. In psychology, they call it congruence. It's where you can feel when what someone is saying or doing is matching what's on the inside, right? Like hopefully some of you have been feeling congruence right now. Like right now I'm feeling fired up and passionate, and that's my internal experience, and it's coming out probably through my voice and my, like I never do hand gestures, but I'm like, and so that's congruence. And so Neo-Advaita teachers and teaching lack congruence. Just like this whole little dialogue I had with DW, right from the start, it was lacking congruence. So again, for those who weren't here at the beginning, someone posted a video that basically shared what I shared, that Ramana Maharshi and Adi Shankara said, you need to do prerequisites. So right from the start, here's DW's response. Dumb video. Who am I just gets one to look within. It's the spiritual path. Like even those words just like, even if you knew nothing about Neo-Advaita, you can almost kind of feel something's just off. So, Great answer. Thank you. I just scanned your channel. It seemed a bit obsessive at first glance, but what you just said makes a lot of sense. Hope you continue to recover. All the best. Omega, it is a little obsessive. I would agree. And I've gone through periods of obsession. And I went through a period where I was just attacking Muji. And then I stopped. For almost 4 years, I didn't mention Muji by name, but then he used some legal trickery to get my most popular video taken down. And so now whenever I feel like it, I just say, and I am kind of obsessed with this topic. I'm obsessed with it for a couple reasons. One reason is I've seen what it can do to people, to myself and others. And because people come to this channel and they say things like, one person said, I didn't even know this was a thing. Because there's not a lot of language out there to even understand, like, what is Neo-Advaita? What is neo-non-duality? What is actual non-duality? How does neo-non-duality negatively impact you? How can you recover from it? There's not a lot of language for it. And so I've had people come to this channel and be like, I didn't even know what you were talking about is a thing. Thank you. So that's one thing that keeps me going. Another thing that keeps me going, honestly, is I get pissed off. Like as I did today. That's not normally what drives videos, but sometimes I'm just like, but there's this other thing that's underneath the pissed off, which is this fire of, I have to say this. I have to. Given the hell I went through, and given all the times, because for 20 years, I listened to teachers like DW, and I didn't say anything. So for 20 fucking years, I let people brainwash me. So what I'm doing is I am unbrainwashing myself. Even though I've stepped out of Neo-Advaita, even though I don't study it, I don't practice it. See, that's the other thing, is the untangling of the Neo-Advaita web is not a straightforward process. Neo-Advaita redefines who you are, delusionally redefines who you are, what is God, what is life, what is the spiritual path, what is the meaning of life, what should you do with your day, what should you think, it's literally brainwashing. It literally redefines in a really crappy way, in a really dysfunctional way. And so part of what I'm doing is just untangling myself, untangling all the delusional. And thanks for being real, Omega. Like, here's an example of congruence. Like, Omega was like, hey, this seems a bit obsessive. Like, that's being real. I appreciate it. And that's part of how to recover from Neo-Advaita, is to learn how to be real. What do we learn from the fact that there is an astral realm? Well, I don't know that it's a fact. So, I mean, one thing we can, if there is an astral realm, what we can take is that as the Buddha said, well, the Buddha kept it really simple. It's written that the Buddha said, there is another world. That's one of the things I love about Theravada Buddhism, is it doesn't do a lot of speculation. But what we can take from that is the idea that when this body dies, existence isn't over. You can't say that no one has realized the self through Muji, because you don't know everyone. And in those, not everyone volunteers that they do. I do happen to know someone who has realized the self through Muji. He's a guy in his 30s from France. This was 2015. I'm sure there's more. So it's true that I can't claim. You're right. What I can say is Muji has not appointed anyone to teach, and there's no one publicly saying, I've realized through Muji. That's true. Now, the question is has this person actually realized? So I don't doubt that and it is possible to have profound spiritual experiences through Muji. I mean, I did. I spent about 3 months obsessed with Muji YouTube videos. You can have a spiritual experience, you can have spiritual insights, but let's be really clear what realizing the self means. According to Ramana Maharshi, realizing the self means effortless awareness of awareness, effortless immersion in the self. That no matter what is going on, with no effort, one is continuously aware of the self, even when the body is asleep. So, I mean, through a Neo-Advaita teacher, I saw the self. One of the most popular Neo-Advaita teachers on the planet, Adyashanti. I was in a satsang with him, and he was talking about when he was a child, he had a moment of seeing the seer. And he's like, oh, that's what I am. And in that moment, I could kind of, I was like, oh shit, like I'm seeing the seer. So in that moment, I, quote, saw what was being pointed at. But in traditional Advaita Vedanta, there's a 3-step process. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Shravana, Manana, and Nidhyasana. Shravana is listening to the teachings, gaining an understanding of the teachings. Manana is reflection on the teachings, and you could say a deepening. And Nidhyasana is an integration of the teachings and a living of them. I am very skeptical that this person has completed the 3rd stage, in which, moment by moment, they are effortlessly immersed in the self and living Dharma. I could be wrong. I'd be happy to talk to the person. So yeah. I mean, Muji hasn't realized the self. So, I mean, but Muji does, this powerful energy comes through Muji, which is palpable, that can lead people to all sorts of spiritual experiences, but Muji's not enlightened. I mean, his behavior basically proves that. Only truth and love. The only one that, I mean, yes, great question. So Amachi has an ashram in India. You can connect with her in person. It's hard to connect with her one-on-one, but it can happen. Your best bet to find an Advaita guru, the easiest way to find an Advaita guru is through the Ramakrishna mission. All around the world, there are Vedanta centers where there are monks who teach Advaita Vedanta. And that's probably I don't know where you are. In the United States, in the Western world, that's probably the easiest way to make contact. I have profound respect for Swamini Brahmaprajananda. I have a link to her on my website. She's in India. If you're sincere, you might be able to meet her in person, but you can definitely, she does all sorts of online classes and whatnot. So I don't know how easy it is to meet her in person. My personal experience is if you are sincere, it's possible to, she's approachable. I'll say it that way. And you can check out her websites on my website. Mew, I had no clues was a thing, and so grateful YouTube recommended me to you. Thank you. I'm grateful to hear that. That's part of why I'm obsessed. You know, I kind of, it's true. I am obsessed with this, and I wouldn't say that's the full truth, but I'd say it's a partial truth. Part of why I'm obsessed with it, as I said, is there's this feeling that I have to do it. I have to. Part of why I'm obsessed is, this woman went far down the Neo-Advaita rabbit hole, and she was caught in this loop. I've shared this story before, so sorry for repeating. And she's like, oh my God, I am suffering. I need help. And then this voice in her head said, well, if you just realize there is no you, all your problems would go away. And she responded, but I've tried that. It doesn't work. I'm still suffering. And this voice in her head said, if you just realize there is no you, all your problems will go away. But I need help. There is no you. So how can you need help? And it went around and around. But I feel terrible. There is no you. What happens is, and this is part of why the recovery process from Neo-Advaita is not so linear or easy, is because we internalize the Neo-Advaita teachings and then start teaching ourselves. And just like DW, start teaching other people. So, so she found my channel. She's one of the people who said, she's the one who said, I didn't even know it was a thing. So that's part of why. The other reason is, I was doing a live and someone was like, what is Neo-Advaita? And I basically said, and she's like, oh, that's why I feel depressed every time I practice non-duality. Or when I listen to it or practice, I start to feel depressed. Okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. It's like, it has me on the verge of tears, I'm obsessed because I went through hell. And through sharing about it, if I can help some other people get out of hell faster, hell sucks. What I went through sucks. But if that can be alchemized to where it could actually help somebody, that's some good shit. That's some good shit. This has been delightful. I have to wrap up. And only truth and love. I just want to say, I came at you pretty hard. So I just want to acknowledge that. It wasn't necessary. I do need to be firm. Like, I have zero tolerance for Neo-Advaita. So I do need to be firm, but I do want to say I came at you pretty hard. And for that, it wasn't necessary. And so I hope you didn't take it personally. You have definitely helped me see truth in the subject. I realize now that the direct path is not the direct path. That's one of Neo-Advaita's greatest hits. The direct path. It's not the direct path. They say it is. They say it is. If you are properly qualified, all the things I shared and all the quotes that'll be beyond this video. Ramana Maharshi said, for the one who is properly qualified, the path of self-inquiry is easy. For the one who is not qualified, it's impossible. So if you're properly qualified, and to be properly qualified, you have to practically be a saint in the sense of not having attachment to this world, being balanced, not being prone to anger, not being prone to mood swings, not having interest in worldly things, but not being depressed, just being a balanced, detached, primarily peaceful human being. Under those circumstances, like from an Advaita Vedanta view, you're almost there. Okay, I have an appointment in like 3 minutes that I have to keep. I want to keep going. There it is. We just hit the hour mark. Very grateful to all you people. Much, much gratitude. What do you say to the statement that there is nobody? I would say, thanks, only truth and love. What would you say to the statement there is nobody? I would say that's Neo-Advaita nonsense. And it's a very dangerous idea. And it's completely contradictory to the teachings of Advaita Vedanta. The teachings of Advaita Vedanta is not there is nobody. The teaching of Advaita Vedanta is you are not your body, your thoughts, your feelings, your moods. But to say that those things don't exist is like is a straight highway to hell and delusion. So I want to keep going, but I got to stop. Big love. Take care.